You will see on your right-hand side the Houses of Parliament, also known as the New Palace of Westminster. Originally, it was a royal palace up until the reign of Henry VIII, when he decided he no longer fancied riverside living and decided to up sticks to Whitehall. It was then the home of the UK Parliament until 1834, when unfortunately a tremendous fire burned it to the ground. And when the people of London saw that the Parliament was ablaze, they raced to the riverside, not to provide assistance, but merely to stand and watch and chant, "Burn, Parliament, burn! Burn, Parliament, burn!" In fact, one man was even arrested for cheering too excessively. It was then rebuilt, designed by Charles Barry in the neo-Gothic style, unveiled in 1860, and is the home of the UK government ever since. We'd like to let you see a couple of politicians there out enjoying their lunch here on the riverside this evening. Feel free to give them a little wave or any other hand gestures you may deem appropriate. I shall not judge. On the ground floor, you'll see these red and green striped awning tents. And the purpose of these is to keep the two Houses of Parliament separate, the democratically elected House of Commons, represented by the green, and the royally appointed House of Lords, represented by the red. Now, this colour segregation extends inside the building as well. The colour-coded keeps them separate in their squash courts, in their bathrooms, in their cafes, restaurants, toilets, and even their voting booths. And the purpose of this separation is, of course, to prevent corruption. Now, I don't know if you know anything about UK politics, but I don't think it's working.
Same everywhere.
Outside the building itself, you see the bridge up ahead. The Lambeth Bridge is, of course, painted red. That's where the House of Lords would access the building. And the bridge we just came under, the Green Bridge, which, of course, Westminster Bridge, the House of Commons, would have entered Parliament via that bridge as well. Now, as our captain turns about on the river here, I'll tell you a little bit about the structure of the building itself. The furthest tower to the left, the tallest tower with the Union Jack on top, that is Victoria Tower. Originally it was the entrance to the palace, now it serves as a parliamentary archive, which means that every law passed by Parliament, a copy of it is kept inside there since the 1400s. Many good, bad and quite strange laws were passed in there, the strangest of course being that it is illegal to wear a full suit of armour inside the House of Parliament, although rather understandable. What is not understandable, however, is that it is also illegal to carry a salmon in a suspicious manner. I'm not sure what that will entail, whether it's tucked under your armpits, slung over your shoulder. Regardless, if you do plan on carrying some salmon through the streets of London later on today, make sure you do so in a non-suspicious manner. The Central Tower, not much to say about that one. It's called the Central Tower and is essentially a giant chimney. With all the hot air being billowed by Parliament, I guess it's got to go somewhere. And of course, the famous clock tower there on the right-hand side, perhaps the most famous landmark here on the River Thames. We all know it, we all love it, and of course, we all know its correct name. Let me hear that name on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. Big Ben! Dear oh dear, incorrect. I know, blew my mind when I first heard this. Does in fact, Big Ben refers to the 13.5-ton bell inside the tower known as the Elizabeth Tower, named after Queen Elizabeth to celebrate her Diamond Jubilee. Named after Sir Benjamin Hall, a rather large, rather round, very loud man, didn't get on with his co-workers. And so when they were installing the bell, they took one look at it, also large, round and loud, and said, "That looks just like Ben." And thus, the name was born. Let's just be glad his name wasn't Richard, or we'd have a completely different monument altogether. Hello up there, Westminster Bridge. Oh, we're far behind. Indeed, Westminster Bridge is the busiest bridge here on the River Thames. Upwards of 8,000 selfies are taken on every day, so hopefully we cameoed in a couple of them. You'll see our setting off point, but don't worry, the journey's not over just yet. It is, of course, the London Eye. It was part of a competition back in 1990, new landmark to celebrate the millennium here in London. And the design for the London Eye came in second place. As well as a silver medal for the London Eye. We'll see the winner further on up the Thames. But British Airways loved the design so much that they commissioned it, invested £74 million for its construction, and it was unveiled in the year 2000. But don't feel too bad for them, they did make that money back in 2 years. It is the world's largest cantilevered observation wheel. So cool because it's supported only on one side, and the observation pods are outside the structure, making it an observation wheel rather than a Ferris wheel. That's right, my bosses get very mad if I use the F word here on the tour. There's 32 observation pods in total, that's one for each borough of London. But don't worry, if you get on board today, find yourself inside pod room pod 13 to cater to our more superstitious guests. When the eye opened, people were point blank refusing to get on the eye, not wanting to get on pod 13, not wanting to tempt fate 103rd, and who could blame them? Coming up on the Golden Jubilee bridges now, either side of the Hungerford Railway Bridge. And if you're wondering why the bridges look so familiar, it's because they were built in the same aesthetic of the eye, built using the leftover metals, the leftover remnants of the eye's construction, making it not only the youngest bridge here on the Thames, unveiled in 2002, but also the most economical. Hello up there, Golden Jubilee Bridge. The sun's out, people are certainly waving today. On your left-hand side, you'll see the South Bank Centre, which is the cultural hub here along the River Thames. The main building, the Royal Festival Hall, was built as part of the Festival of Britain back in 1951, sort of a tonic to the nation to raise the nation's spirits after a rather couple depressing years of World War II. The Royal Festival Hall nowadays is the home of the London Philharmonic Orchestra. If you come along, you don't have the rehearsal schedule. You pop in, listen to the rehearse completely for free. If you fancy a little bit of culture. And speaking of culture, just to the left of the Royal Festival Hall, underneath that yellow spiralling staircase, is the home of the Undercroft, built in the 1970s, and is the home of UK skateboarding. So you can pop along, watch them pull off their tricks, rather entertaining, and of course if they fail to pull off the tricks, that's also pretty entertaining. Well, hello up there, Waterloo Bridge. If people wave back at you, chances are they're actually not from London. On your right-hand side, you'll see a very tall, very grey, rather ugly building. And no, it is not a car park. It is, in fact, the National Theatre. When it was unveiled in 1976, King Charles was even decreed that it looked like the back end of a nuclear power station. And it's hard to disagree with him, not just because he is the king, but it is rather brutal on the eyes. But that is a deliberate choice. It is designed in the brutalist style, and you have to say it's doing a rather good job of it. Though maybe ugly on the outside, inside it's rather beautiful. It does have 3 lovely theatres inside, one of which is the Olivier Theatre, named after Sir Laurence Olivier, who was the theatre's first artistic director. It's a great place to check out some London theatre without having to pay any West End extortionate prices. In fact, a lot of West End plays start their life inside the National Theatre as little workshops. So you can check out any plays that go on there before they make it big, before they get transferred to the West End or Broadway. Coming up on the right-hand side, you notice this red building, white stripes with a grey tower on top. Now, if you told me that tower spells out the word OXO, I'd have to tell you, you're seeing things, you're imagining things. No, it is not. Even though that used to be the home of the OXO company. Back in the 1930s, they were taken to court because it is illegal to have any skyline advertising here along the River Thames, because the Thames is a royal pathway. But the OXO company, I don't know if you know them, they make these little stock cubes. You add water to them, turns into gravy. It is the peak of British cuisine. Well, they hired a very clever lawyer who stood up in front of the judge and said, Your Honour, we know the law. We did not advertise our company name. We simply we shopped online and we came up with some random geometrically shaped windows that just so happened to come in the form of a circle, a cross, and another circle. Could easily have spelled out oops, could have spelled out two, but instead it spells out OXO. It is a complete coincidence. Do you believe him? Of course not. Well, the judge did, and they got away with it. Although unfortunately that judge hasn't worked a case since. He's become a bit of a laughing stock. Stock cubes. The jokes don't get any better as we go along the river, unfortunately. On your left-hand side, you get your first glimpse of St. Paul's Cathedral. Marble structure is the 5th iteration of the dome, the 4th of course burning down in the Great Fire of London of 1666. It was designed by Sir Christopher Wren and unveiled on Christmas Day on 1711. Standing 365 feet tall, that's 1 foot for every day of the year, because Sir Christopher, rather religious man, believed you should pray every day of the year, not just the holidays. I'm sorry, Christopher, some of us got things to do. Coming up under Blackfriars Bridge now, called 2.5 Bridges, and you'll soon see why. I'll tell you about on the other side. What things do they serve? Well, all should be revealed in part 2 of the tour. As you emerge at Blackfriars Bridge, you'll get another look at St. Paul's Cathedral on your left-hand side. When it was unveiled, it was originally meant to be adorned with a 60-foot golden pineapple on top of the dome. Well, the church stepped in and said, no, Sir Christopher, pineapple does not belong on pizza. It certainly does not belong on top of a cathedral. So they settled for the slightly more traditional cross instead. But if you look to the left, those 2 golden orbs, they are in fact pineapples. So Sir Christopher got his way in the end, but these only stand at 6 feet tall rather than 60 foot. If you're wondering why the obsession with pineapples, it goes back in the 18th century. Pineapples were seen as a status symbol of luxury, with one pineapple costing in today's money £5,000. In fact, you notice there's no tall buildings around St. Paul's Cathedral. That's because it's a protected skyline, meaning it must be visible from 8 specific points in the city. Hence why the City of London School's got that glass atrium, so that the dome is visible as we pass by. So you can't go around it, go through it. On the right-hand side, you'll see this white building with a thatch roof, and you'll be forgiven for thinking that this is the oldest building you'll see on the tour. This was in fact built in 1997. It is an accurate reconstruction of William Shakespeare's Globe Theatre, the original burning down in 1630 when during a production of Henry VIII, Shakespeare decided to be a good idea, in order to replicate the sound of thunder, to let off a live cannon inside the theatre. Now whether or not this was effective to replicate thunder is up for debate, but what is not is that it shot directly through the ceiling and burned the theatre to the ground. And when the American director Sam Wanamaker visited London in the 1960s, he was rather dismayed to find that there was not a single monument to Shakespeare in all of London, so took it upon himself to build an accurate reconstruction of the globe using authentic Elizabethan building techniques, which means no power tools, no modern methods were used in its construction. And you can see some Shakespeare plays to this day, tickets as low as £5, although that is £5 for a standing ticket, and Shakespeare's plays last up to and including 3 hours. Right outside of that red greatness, that is where the original Globe Theatre would have stood, but unfortunately not a single scrap that remains to this day. But to the left, you notice this brown building with red windows. It's not just any pub, it's the Anchor Tavern, where a pub or ale house has been on that very spot for over 800 years. Its patrons include Shakespeare himself. Charles Dickens is said to have penned some works inside there, and even the great diarist Samuel Pepys is said to have spotted the Great Fire of London from that very pub. In fact, it's because of Sir Pepys spotting it that we have such a detailed account of the fire to this day. And speaking of the Great Fire of London, just coming up on the left-hand side, just as we go past these buildings here, you'll see this tall grey column with a golden orb on top. And that is a monument to the Great Fire of London, known simply as the Monument. Very creative. Standing at 66 feet tall, that's not just to commemorate the year of the fire, but also, if you lay it flat down on its side, the tip of the flame would touch the building where the fire is said to have started, which is a bakery on Pudding Lane. There's an observation deck on top, designed by Sir Christopher Wren. The purpose was so the Londoners could climb up and watch the city be rebuilt after the Great Fire of London. There's 311 steps in total, which you can climb today, so it's a tribute to the Great Fire because your thighs will be burning. And of course, the sight that many of you came to see here today, the world famous, the infamous, the iconic, the legendary, the historical London Bridge is directly behind you. That's right, that unassuming grey slab of concrete we just went under, that's London Bridge. Down up ahead, well, that's Tower Bridge. That's right, if you type London Bridge into Google Images, it'll show you pictures of Tower Bridge, and even Fergie from the Black Eyed Peas, she released her single for the music video for London Bridge, and there she is, twerking away on Tower Bridge. But she's since amended it, so all is forgiven. Now, it may be difficult to make it out, but if you look very closely, coming up on the right-hand side, it's currently decked out with hard on the naked eye, but if you look closely, you will spot the 11,500-ton battleship, the HMS Belfast. It was instrumental at the start of World War II, fired some of the opening shots of the Normandy D-Day landings, and is said to have sunk Hitler's favourite battleship, the Scharnhorst. After which it took part in the Korean War, then was on active peacekeeping duty until 1963, where it was said to be decommissioned and scrapped for spare parts. At which point the Imperial War Museum stepped in and said, "We had a bit of a whip around, we'll take it off your hands for the princely sum of £1 whole pound." The floating museum to the Navy. The guns today are still active, and they are currently trained on a random service station on the M11. So if you're planning on fueling up your car this evening, maybe avoid that one in case someone pushes a button. Now with Tower Bridge going ahead, I'm going to get out of your way so you don't have to photobomb any of your pictures. But do remember, guys, to stay in your seats as you get your photos and videos, just so our captain can see where he's going. On Tower Bridge itself, it is a lot younger than it looks. It was built in 1894, designed by Horace James. It's a vascular bridge, which means the 2 vasculae in the centre open up to allow tall ships to pass through underneath. In its heyday, upwards of 6,000 ships would have passed through, but nowadays, unfortunately, well, we're lucky if it raises at least once a week. But if it's on your bucket list to see the bridge rise, you can go online and see the schedule. And if you've got a tall ship of your own, and 24 hours to spare, you can let them know, and they'll raise the bridge completely for free. Now, we went to quite a few bridges here along the River Thames, but this is perhaps the most important. That's because there's an old Edwardian sailor's legend that says, and they wave back, you get 5 years good luck. That's because this would have been the last place loved ones would have seen sailors off to sea, hoping that they will return within 5 years. So I don't know about you, but I need all the good luck I can get. So those of you on the top deck, hands in the air. Those of you in the window, let's wait for the people on Tower Bridge and hope we get that good luck. It's over. We're off to a good start, I see. Oh no, it's petering out. There we go. One person, 2 people. That's enough. We've got that good luck. It's in the bag. Coming back in old London Port now, back in the 19th century, it'd be so that you could pass from one side of the River Thames to the other without even getting your feet wet. Nowadays it's a little bit of a different story. And of course, it is time for your photo opportunity of the day, and that is a selfie with me. Just kidding. Here's of course with the skyline London in the background. In fact, you guys have been so lovely today that you're our favourite audience, and we're going to have you be in our own photo today. So if you want to turn around to your right, you can photo bomb our very own photo. Face this way. Face this way. There we go. Lovely stuff, guys. Who would have thought that you guys would be the most photogenic thing of the day? As we turn around, head back under Tower Bridge again, I'll tell you my favourite story about Tower Bridge. And that is back in 1953, a bus driver by the name of Albert Gunter was completing his route, a route which would take him directly across the bridge, but unfortunately, it's a rather foggy day, and he didn't see a red light telling him that the bridge was about to raise. And it wasn't until he noticed that the bridge was raising and the bus was travelling a slightly more vertical path than usual, he realised something had gone terribly wrong. So he was faced with a split-second decision. Does he slam on the brakes, bring the bus to the stop, and hope for the best, or does he put the pedal to the metal? Does he hit the accelerator, clearing a terrible gap in the middle, using the bridge around, and land safely on the other side? The option for the ladder, and as they will deal with national hero. Now in terms of the structure of Tower Bridge itself, made of steel and stone, originally was painted brown, the colour of Johnny Colour, but it's since been repainted a slightly more patriotic red, white and blue. And the stone itself, purely cosmetic, so it matches its namesake on your right hand side, the Tower of London. So a magnificent structure built in 1066 by William the Conqueror. He was also a Norman, but calling him William the Norman would be rather confusing. It's throughout its lifespan, it's been a palace, an armour, it's been a mint, but most famously, it's also been a place of torture, imprisonment, and execution. It's going to be blocked by city crews. But just once you go past the boat, you'll see the lettering, the entry to the Traders' Gate, just above a blacked-off archway. You can just about make it out now. Now this is where the traders will be inside the tower, never to return again. So that's first one-way system. Remember, being executed inside the tower was a privilege for royalty. If you were a mere peasant like myself, you weren't executed just slightly to the left on Tower Hill. Don't worry, you've had a paying audience watching you, so you'd feel a little bit like a celebrity as you're being executed. Although it does have quite a grim history, the Tower of London is of course the home to the crown jewels to this very day, guarded by the York Wardens, also known as the Beef Eaters. So called because they were King Henry VIII's personal guard. I don't know if you've ever seen a picture of Henry. Rather like that, enjoying his beef. That's what his guard to John. As we look back at that's probably the most famous for historical site here in London. And if you ask the Beef Eaters nicely, then they can give you a free tour of the London, of the town as well. Now, as mentioned before, the St. Paul's Cathedral Dome is a protected visual view, which means a lot of the buildings here on the River Thames have to be designed in a strange manner in order to accommodate this, which led to some of the strange shaped buildings we have on your right hand side. Now this collection of buildings here, it's known as the City of London itself, just 1 square mile radius. Everything else around is Greater London. And of course it's a big name, so if you remember the different shaped buildings, at the back is the girdle, the pointed one is the scalpel, the little triangles on it, that's the cheese grater, and the one closest to us is the walkie-talkie. And directly across the river on the left hand side, it's kind of hard to miss, it is the 135 metre Shard. 95 stories tall, It would be 96 stories, but that's another story. Inside there are restaurants, cafes, bars, a 5-star hotel, offices rather boringly, but at the very top there are apartments for sale. Last I checked, they were retailing for the princely sum of £43 million. Well, if you've got that kind of money, what are you doing on this boat? But if you do have that kind of money, I'd like to remind you, my name is Paul, and I am single. Although for that price, you can't open a window, you don't get any pets, you don't get a garden, but you can get a lovely view of London, so I guess it's kind of worth it. Possibly Will I Am owns the penthouse floor, so you'll have a celebrity neighbour. Now I know I spoke a little bit up ahead, we're coming up on London Bridge itself, perhaps the most historical bridge here in London, but like myself, it's not much to look at, but it does have quite the intriguing history. It is the 4th incarnation of the bridge. The first one was built in 50 AD by the Romans as a means of connecting the mainland to what was then known as Londinium. The next incarnation, the medieval bridge, slightly more infamous. At one point you will have seen the heads of traders displayed on spikes at the southern end of the bridge. There were shops and houses stacked so high, so congested, that it would take you 2 hours to pass from one side of the bridge to the other. So sort of like a mini city within a city. Then the Victorians replaced it, the Victorian Bridge, which still stands to this very day, but not here in London. Now, of course, the third iteration of London Bridge is all the way across the sea in Arizona. And I'll tell you why when we get to the other side of London Bridge itself. As you can see, I'm not telling any lies. It's etched right there at the foundations. This is, in fact, London Bridge. I know, rather disappointing.
I didn't think you were going to tell us about that.
Back in the 1960s, they were carrying out a survey of London Bridge and found that its foundations were sinking directly into the River Thames. So they decided the next best thing, rather than just tearing it down, was to find someone to buy it. And that person was Robert Archie, who spent $2.5 million to have the bridge stripped apart, brick by brick. Each brick was then shipped all the way off to America, where it was then reassembled like a giant Lego set. So you find yourself in Arizona, you can walk across the original London Bridge. Unfortunately, the fourth version we have right now, well, it's not much to look at. And speaking of not much to look at, Cannon Street Bridge is essentially just a train station. From the left-hand side, you'll notice a real-life pirate ship. It is Sir Francis Drake's Golden Hind. He's the first Englishman to circumnavigate the globe, although that was not his intention. His intention was to plunder Spanish gold. And he amassed so much that he didn't want to run the Spanish again, so he just kept going on straight line until he eventually found himself back in London again. And how did he punish his piracy? Well, he amassed so much gold that he was able to pay off the UK's national debt 3 times over, so he decided to give him a pardon and make it a night. So you see, kids, crime doesn't count. And those of you with sensitive nature may not want to look to your right-hand side. There is a sauna where clothing is optional. Sometimes they way back. Sometimes we see more than we'd like to. In case you're wondering what the sudden change in smell is, that is a rubbish depot where rubbish is collected, stored, and then transported along the River Thames inside a barge. But don't worry, we'll soon be upwind of it. But coming ahead, this green and gold bridge, it is Southwark Bridge, also known as the Lonely Bridge. Aww. So called because it's got the lowest footfall of all the bridges here on London, because, well, essentially, connects nothing of interest on one side to nothing of interest on the other. In fact, even Google Maps will recommend you don't take this bridge. But I recommend you do, because if you fancy a little romantic stroll later on this evening, you notice these gas lamps up ahead. They are the original ones that were installed in 1921, and every night they are lit by gas lamps. Disney's favourite bridge. He hates London Bridge so much, for obvious reasons, that if you ever see London Bridge depicted in a Disney movie, it's always going to be Southwark Bridge rather than London Bridge. And speaking of bridges with prolific film careers, you may recognise the bridge coming up ahead as in the Harry Potter movie, where it was attacked and destroyed, or perhaps in Guardians of the Galaxy, where it was attacked and destroyed, or perhaps London Has Fallen, where it was attacked and destroyed. We don't know why Hollywood hates this bridge so much, but it's become a bit of a whipping boy when it comes to depicting London in movies. But maybe that might be because of its rather shaky history. As I mentioned earlier, the rontonai came second in a competition to find a new London landmark, and well, the winner is this bridge overhead, which is called Millennium Bridge. It was unveiled in June 2000, where 160,000 people waited to cross the bridge. But upon doing so, they noticed that the bridge had a rather tremendous problem. People were falling over, people were puking, vomiting over the side. The person even fell over, broke their leg, had to be rescued. So 2 days later, the bridge was shut down. And then NASA engineers were flown in to install 91 earthquake dampers on the bridge. And then 2 years later, 2002, it reopened. And when Norman Foster, who designed the bridge, was interviewed about its design, he said, "There's nothing wrong with my bridge, the design is perfectly fine. The wrong is simply because of the way that Londoners walk." Practically, we march everywhere apparently, but if you fancy a little stroll across the bridge later on today, make sure you do so in a calm manner. Hello there, Millennium Bridge. Please don't keep on us, we swear the bridge is fixed. Of course, the bridge leads directly across the river into the Tate Modern Gallery. Originally the Bankside Power Station until 1981 was emitting too much pollution and it was shut down. And then stood idle for 20 years, as you see that on the 325 cable still exists. But then it reopened as the Tate Modern Gallery in the year 2000, which is the world's largest collection of modern art, and it's completely free to enter. So you fancy popping inside, have a little perusal of the modern art, I do recommend you do so. But don't worry if modern art is not your thing, it also has a rather nice cocktail bar. And I find that after a couple of cocktails, well, modern art really starts to speak to you. Coming up again on Blackfriars Bridge, you notice along the roof it's completely solar panelled, which means on a sunny day like today, the station is completely self-sufficient in power. But unfortunately, for the other 364 days of the year, it is not. On the left-hand side, you'll see the newest addition to our London skyline, that black shiny building there on the left, just beyond that white crane. It is number 1 Blackfriars, but like all buildings here in London, they're all unusually shaped, and thus we've given them some unusual nicknames. This one has been called the Cocktail Shaker, the Boomerang, the Baby Bug, and most recently, the Kim Kardashian. I'm not sure why. Oh, right. Yeah, I see it. In fact, Kim came on a tour a few years back as an episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and when she was told this fact, she didn't take too kindly to it, but I'm not sure why. If I had a building named after myself, I'd be rather pleased, but one does have to wonder what shape that building would be. These mysterious red columns. I'll tell you their purpose when we get to the other side of Blackfriars Bridge. It's gotten very windy. So those red columns were originally part of St. Paul's Bridge, which is a bridge that would have transported steam trains across the River Thames, but unfortunately, as time went on and trains got heavier due to diesel engines, the foundations of the bridge could no longer support the train's weight. So they were tasked with building 2 new bridges, whilst the old bridge would be deconstructed. But unfortunately, because of a pay dispute, the team tasked with disassembling the bridge thought they were being paid less than the other team, so they decided to work at a much slower pace. So when the time came to remove those columns, they found that they were so deeply embedded in the River Thames that the only way to remove them was by using dynamite, which would of course destroy the brand new bridges. So they decided the next best thing to do was simply paint them red, give them a grade 2 listing, and hope that nobody notices. And that's why we point them out every single day. Now on your right hand side you'll see some construction work going on, something new coming to the City of London, something exciting, something glamorous perhaps. It's of course our brand new sewerage system. The affectionately titled Super Pooper apparently contains tunnels so wide that you can drive 2 double-decker buses through it without touching the sides, which is a slightly better commute than I had this morning. It's designed to replace the old Victorian sewage system. Of course, back in the 1800s, we'd simply dump our sewage directly into the River Thames, out of sight, out of mind. But unfortunately, in 1850, there was a bit of a population swell here in London, leading to an event known as the Great Stink of 1858. There was so much sewage in the River Thames that during a particularly hot wave, the sewage began to ferment, began to stink like a terrible, terrible soup. Gave off stinks so bad that half of London had to be evacuated. There were outbreaks of cholera, and even Parliament threatened to up sticks and move until something was done. And that something was a series of interceptor sewers built by Joseph Vezeljet, designed to narrow the River Thames and quite literally flush the sewage out to sea. And it was quite successful because to this day, the River Thames is the cleanest metropolitan river in the world. And I know that sounds like a lie if you were to look at the Thames right now, but I assure you that murky brown colour is not due to pollution or sewage. but rather is due to the sediment of the river being churned up by the tidal forces. In fact, if you took a glass of Thames water home with you this evening, popped it on your nightstand, by the morning the sediment would have sunk to the bottom and crystal clear water would be at the top, although I still don't recommend that you drink it. The River Thames is so clean, there's 125 different species of marine life in the River Thames, including, at some point, we've seen whales in there, and 2 different species of sharks. So that's another reason not to go swimming in the Thames. Now, speaking of the tidal forces, the tides here on the River Thames do rise and fall quite rapidly. And if you notice on the right-hand side, just beyond the Wellington ship, you notice these green lions with rings in their mouths. Now, originally they were Victorian mooring boats that row up and attach the boats to they now serve a completely different function, and that is to serve as an early flood warning detection system. So you ever find yourself walking along the Thames and most of the tide is getting quite high, the lions on you know what's to throw in. To help you and don't realise this, and it goes a little something like this. If the lions are drinking, then London is sinking. If it's up to their mains, we're going down the drains. And if the lions are dumped, then London is flooded. Flooded. That's right. If you're thinking something else, shame on you, but well, you're essentially correct. We're coming up on Waterloo Bridge now, known as the Ladies' Bridge. That's because it was built during World War II. Most men were off fighting on the front lines. 95% of the bridge's construction crew were made up of women. And to this day, it is the only bridge on the River Thames that is completed on time and under budget. And I'm pretty sure we all know the reason why. It's also built using a self-cleaning stone, but don't ask me the science behind it. But apparently on a rainy day, and we get quite a few here in London, the rainwater reacts with the stone, creating a sort of chemical reaction, and the bridge cleans itself, technically making it the cleanest bridge here in London. Although you wouldn't think to look at it, it's rather streaky. On your right hand side, you notice this white building with a green tiled roof and a single flag on top. That is the home of the world-famous Savoy Hotel, London's first purpose-built luxury hotel. When it opened, its clientele included Marilyn Monroe and Charlie Chaplin. Nowadays, Justin Bieber and Taylor Swift make it their home wherever they visit London. I know many of you may be staying in lodgings this evening, but if you fancy a little bit of an upgrade, you can get yourself the Royal Suite inside the Savoy for the princely sum of £18,000 per night, with a minimum of a 3-night stay. And for that, you get your own chauffeur, you get your own private butler, and you get access to the hotel's 24-hour therapist. If I just spent £18,000 on that, I might actually need a therapist myself. On your right-hand side, you'll see the oldest thing you'll see on the tour. 2,500 years old, Cleopatra's Needle. It was gifted to the UK by Egypt for their help in the Battle of the Nile, defeating Napoleon's forces. Unfortunately, the 2 stone fences at the bottom were installed the incorrect way. They're facing outwards to ward off the stones. Now they're facing inwards. Just looks like they're having a little bit of a chat. Apparently it's also terrible, terrible luck. Coming up on the Golden Jubilee Bridge again. Unfortunately, it's our last bridge here on the tour. It's your last chance to wave at a stranger here in London and get a wave back. If you try this later on the tube this evening, you might get a different response. So make sure we get a full 5-finger wave instead of a slightly more customary 1 or 2. Hello up there! Lovely stuff, we've had another high. Now on your right hand side you'll see this collection of green trees, but just beyond there, this white building with a green roof and flags on top, that is the Ministry of Defence, known as the Iceberg, because what you see is just the tip. Standing at 10 stories tall, it's rumoured to extend a further 25 stories below, containing nuclear bunkers and secret rooms. The bunkers themselves, they connect to the Houses of Parliament, to 10 Downing Street and to Buckingham Palace, so don't worry guys, in the event of World War III, they'll be fine. We'll just figure things out for ourselves, I suppose. And of course, in 1999, the Ministry of Defence took the 런던아이 to court, stating that when the eye opened, international spies could board the eye, and when they get to the very top, using a telescopic lens, they could peer across the river inside the Ministry of Defence and steal state secrets in perhaps the most boring James Bond movie ever made. Well, the judge who was assigned this case took one look at this charge and said, "You are quite literally the Ministry of Defence. Just buy some curtains." And they did, and it was case closed. Or rather, curtains closed. That's the worst one. Just beyond the pier there, you see this white building. That is County Hall. It was built in 1922. It was the home of the Greater London Council until Margaret Thatcher kicked them out in 1987, stating that the building was too nice for them. Now it is the home of Merlin Entertainment, featuring attractions such as Shrek's Adventure, the London Dungeons, and my personal favourite, Sea Life Adventure. Get up close with some sharks in a perfectly safe environment. The Eye itself, we've had 2,000 marriage proposals since its opening, so it's a bit of a hot spot for romance, but we've also had 14 rejections. But do remember, if you are planning to pop the question on the Eye, here's 2 important facts. 1, it travels at 2.2 miles an hour and takes 30 minutes to fully rotate. So if you're planning to pop the question at the very top and it's acting, that's 15 minutes of very awkward silence until you reach the ground again. Not only that, you've got people witnessing this act and they take a souvenir photo. Some things are just best left forgotten. Our most recent rejection was on Valentine's Day of this year, and poor chap, we gave him a bottle of champagne to try and cheer him up, but I don't think it worked. Of course, County Hall does contain the best tourist attraction of all, free public toilets. That's right, the toilets downstairs are now currently closed for cleaning, so if you do want to spend a penny without having to spend a penny, then just pop inside the ron던아이 ticket office and they'll be able to take care of you inside there. We're just pulling up onto the pier now, just a couple more moments here, just on the top deck, just do remain seated, and I'll tell you when it's safe to disembark. Not much left for me to say, except thank on the River Thames here today. Hope you enjoyed travelling up and down the Thames and enjoyed the sights and sounds about it. You've been an absolutely lovely audience. If you did enjoy the tour, please do feel free. Oh, that was a big one. If you did enjoy the tour, please feel free to leave a review on TripAdvisor. There's some QR codes there on the pier. I've also got one attached to me. It's sort of a dystopia. You can scan that and leave a little review on TripAdvisor. If you did enjoy the tour, please do mention my name. My name is Paul. But if you didn't enjoy the tour, sorry about that. And my name is Roger. Yes, that'll do. I'll be here at the back of the boat, guys. I'll tell you when it's safe to disembark. Please do enjoy the rest of your time here in London. Thank you very much.